So this one's pretty easy. If you own an '06 or newer 4-wheel drive Ram 1500 excluding the Mega Cab, and you want to level out the front end of your Ram, you want to get rid of that factory rake, and you want to do it as affordably and as easily as possible, you should be checking out the MotoFab 2.5-inch front leveling kit that I've got on this strut in front of me today. I say that because around the $65 price point, this is a lot less expensive than any of the other leveling kits currently available, but it is still really well made. It's actually made out of CNC machined aluminum, so you're not going to have to worry about this thing compressing over time, and you're not going to have to worry about any rust or corrosion. On top of that, it's also fitted with a nice black powder coat finish, and they do throw in new studs for the factory nuts on top of the strut, making the install pretty straightforward. Now, as far as that install goes, it is something that you could do at home with basic hand tools. You will need a little bit of knowledge because you are working with your primary suspension components, and for that reason, I'm going to give the install a pretty moderate 2 out of 3 wrenches on my difficulty meter. It should take you about 2 to 3 hours to get both sides done. So again, if you want to level out the front end of your Ram 1500, you want to do it as affordably as possible, go ahead and stick around. I'll show you guys all the tools you need, and I'm going to walk you through the install step by step. To install your leveling kit, you'll need standard drive ratchets. You'll also need 8, 10, 13, 15, 16, 21, and 23 millimeter sockets. You'll need 15, 16, 21, 23, and 24 millimeter wrenches. You will also need a hammer and a pry bar. Now, optional but very helpful tools include an impact gun and some spray lubricant. All right, so first we have to disconnect our sway bar end link. In order to do that, you're going to need an 18 millimeter wrench to hold the nut in place. You're also going to need an 8 millimeter deep socket to get the end of the end link itself spinning. That'll help you loosen it so you can move it out of the way. All right, now that you've loosened the sway bar end link, you can also disconnect the tie rod end here. You're going to disconnect this nut using a 21 millimeter deep socket. All right, next we're going to disconnect our upper ball joint from the knuckle. At this point, it's also helpful to support the entire steering assembly from the lower control arm using a 4-jack or a pole jack. Now you're going to need a 21 millimeter wrench for this one, and you're also going to need a hammer. You're going to tap on the boss of the knuckle there to loosen it once you actually pop that nut free. All right, now we're going to loosen the lower portion of our strut. In order to do that, you're going to need a 21 millimeter socket and a 24 millimeter wrench. All right, now we can finally remove our strut, and in order to do that, you're going to loosen 3 nuts on top of the strut. You're going to need a 15 millimeter wrench for this one. All right, so if you run into any clearance issues while you're removing the strut, easy way to get around that is to remove the sway bar end link entirely. Now the top nut on the end link is going to require a 16 millimeter deep socket. Now if the end link starts rotating on you, you can actually hold it in place right here using a 15 millimeter wrench. All right, now that we have our strut removed, we're going to install our spacer, but before we do that, we have to install these new studs here. They're going to go through the threaded holes, and you're going to need a 5/16 Allen head socket to tighten these down. All right, once you got your studs in place, go ahead and throw the spacer on top of the strut, and you're gonna secure them to the original studs on the strut using the provided nylock nuts. You're gonna need a 17mm socket to tighten these down. All right, now obviously with that spacer on the strut, it might be a bit of a squeeze trying to get it back in place, especially since it's got that little flange on the end on the bottom there. To make it easy on ourselves, we're gonna pull our caliper off our rotor. It's just held in with 2 bolts, so you're gonna need a 13mm deep socket. All right, now that we have our strut back in place, we can install the lower bolt with the nut. We're just gonna leave this hand loose for now. Now that our strut is secure on the bottom, we're gonna secure it on the top. We're gonna put our original 15mm nuts in place, and again, you're gonna need a 15mm wrench to tighten all these down. All right, now we're gonna get our tie rod end inserted, and we're gonna reinstall that 21mm nut and tighten that down again with our 21mm socket. All right, now if the entire end of the tie rod starts spinning on you, instead you're gonna need a 10mm deep socket and a 21mm wrench to hold the nut in place while you tighten it down. All right, with your tie rod end inserted, we can finally get the upper ball joint into the knuckle as well. Again, that's another 21mm nut. Now, it's kind of a hard job to do, but if you have a friend with a pry bar, it'll make it a lot easier. You want to shove the pry bar on top of the upper control arm, get some leverage on it, pull it down, line up the stud with the boss on the knuckle, and you should be able to get that nut in place. All right, next we're gonna reinstall our caliper. We're also gonna tighten the nut here on our axle. All right, next we're going to reinstall the hardware on our sway bar end leg. All right, now that everything else is in place, we're going to finally tighten down our bottom bolt and nut for the strut itself. All right, once you got all those nuts and bolts tightened down, do it once over before you throw your wheels back on. That way you can be sure those wheels aren't going to fall off after the fact. Other than that, that wraps up my review of the MotoFab 2.5-inch front leveling kit fitting your 06 or newer 4-wheel drive equipped Ram. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.